Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Tourismus Namibia. As always, welcome especially to a couple of nice topics that we've found for you. And we'll obviously have a couple of destinations that we want to introduce to you. And then we have a very nice interview under To The Point today. My name is Frank Steffen, as you can see on the screen. And I'll be your host for the next probably 40 to 45 minutes. But first up, before we go there, let's just quickly have a peek at the marketplace and then we'll go to topics. Yeah, welcome back. And first up, before we go forward, let's quickly have a look at Neckartal Dam. Yeah, what a sight. And it continues to spill water into the Fish River. And at this stage, to say on Thursday, the spillage from Neckartal amounted to approximately 200 cubic meters per second. And now combined with Nauta Dam, that was releasing something like 300 cubic meters per second, you can imagine that by late Thursday evening, one would have expected that roughly 500 cubic meters per second of water would be rushing to and through ice. So that's always the reason why ice resort is closed at this time of the year. Here you could see on Thursday, this was still early days. So the water was already going into the tourism sites. So as normal, we would probably be finding that there will be some serious damage over time. So let's hope it all goes well for ice, but in the meantime, let's face it, water is important for us, and that water would be rushing through the site along the Fish River, and then obviously onto the Orange River, and that already is flooding wherever you can think of. So right, then up next, we've got farmers in the north. You can see they are starting to plow their lands. And this is good news for tourism too, or for environment, I should actually say, as it implies that good rains will have allowed the parks to be to revive as well. In other words, getting more growth, and that in turn ensures that the human-wildlife conflict is very likely to go down as well. So hopefully still a couple of rains. This is up in the Kavango, but I think at the end of the day, we hope that good rains will be coming down in the northwest, because that's where it's very dry at this stage. Right, and then our next topic that we also have is Sandhof lilies. Here, everybody always talks about the Sandhof lilies, which you can clearly see here. And people were obviously delighted to go down to Sandhof, which is here from Windhoek as you go down to the southwestern side, down to Malterheur, and you can see people were having fun. But here's the nice photo that the Allgemeine Zeitung also had. If you look at the next picture, we've also got lilies. And at first you think, oh, more Sandhof. No, not more Sandhof. Right on top of the screen, you can actually see Uis. And so it shows that even there you've got unique plant growth. This is a sort of onion plant, also a lily. And they covered the ground just outside Uis, which is nice to see. People always think it has to be the same old, and it shows that Namibia, wherever you go, is totally different, because Uis is obviously more towards the northwest. Again, adding to the subject that I say, I hope there's more rain on its way for the northwest, because that's where we obviously have to watch out for our desert-adapted lines, and they are in dire straits at this stage. So those are our topics for today. Up next, we've got destinations. Yes, destinations this week. I've decided to do it a bit different. You know that I try to not always be the boring old self. First up, we've got Café Anton, and some of you will remember that we had Schweizer House previously. Now, Schweizer House and Café Anton are basically the same places, with Café Anton being what they themselves call themselves the most famous coffee shop. I dare say it's true because it's probably one of the oldest cafes that we've got in Namibia, and it offers traditional German confectionery such as Black Forest cream cake, Florentina's bee sting, and lots of other cakes. And while you're there, you can see here on the outside, you can sit as well. If you look at the next photos, you will see that there's a nice place to sit outside, enjoy a cup of coffee, tea, or whatever is your choice. And otherwise, if there's mist and it's cold, then you go inside. So behind those windows, you've got a very nice restaurant, and you can obviously have a coffee there as well. So they serve breakfasts and lunches for groups, and you obviously just need to arrange it. There you can see these huge choices, cheesecake and all, whatever your heart desires. And this is actually a photo that Erwin Leuschner sent to the Allgemeine Zeitung in December. Typically, it's these gingerbread houses that are then on a certain day opened for the public, and everybody can do whatever they do. Obviously, children just love it. A typical December Christmas event each year in Swakopmund. But Erwin Leuschner, who obviously made this photo and also brought us this contribution, actually sat down and had an interview.
Guten Morgen, Sylvia Kleinstüber. Du bist mit deiner Mutter und deiner Schwester beim Café Anton. Ihr seid die Inhaber, nicht wahr?
Ja, guten Morgen, Erwin. Ja, wir sind die Inhaber von Hotel Schweizer Haus Café Anton und willkommen hier bei uns.
Danke. Das Café Anton oder Hotel Schweizer Haus ist natürlich aus Swakopmund nicht mehr wegzudenken. Erzähl mal ein bisschen, wie alt seid ihr oder wie alt ist dieses Etablissement?
1965 wurde das Hotel eröffnet, damals mit nur ganz wenigen Zimmern. Und dann ein Jahr später wurde das Café dann eröffnet, also 1966, das Café Anton dann.
Okay, und was bietet ihr alles? Also natürlich habt ihr viele Hotelzimmer, aber das Café ist natürlich sehr berühmt für die deutsche Kochkunst, würde ich mal sagen, und die deutsche Bäckerei, nicht wahr?
Ja, wir sind sehr bekannt für unsere deutschen Leckereien, Konditorei, Bäckerei. Wir machen natürlich alles von Schwarzwälder Kirsch bis zum gebackenen Käsekuchen, bis zum Apfelstrudel, alles ein bisschen dabei und auch ein paar Plätzchen und so. Was das Herz begehrt ist, haben wir eigentlich meistens zur Verfügung.
Oh, lecker. Und erzähl mal ein bisschen über die vergangene Urlaubssaison, also der Dezember, der jetzt gerade war. Wie war das Geschäft für euch im Gegensatz zu den Vorjahren, wenn du so einen kurzen Überblick geben kannst?
Also wir haben natürlich weitaus nicht so ein gutes Geschäft gehabt, aber wir können uns sehr zufrieden schätzen, dass wir sehr gut besucht waren im Gegensatz zu den vorigen Jahren. Die letzten paar Jahre waren natürlich eine absolute Katastrophe für uns, aber weil wir leider keinen großen Tourismus hatten. Aber dieses Jahr im Dezember, die Saison war sehr kurz, aber in den kurzen Wochen sind wir sehr dankbar, hatten wir extrem viel zu tun.
Ja, das ist auch natürlich meine nächste Frage. Corona hat uns alle ein bisschen beeinflusst, ein bisschen mehr als man wünscht. Wie war es bei euch? Ihr habt natürlich auch gravierende Folgen gehabt, ne?
Ja, wir mussten leider auch viele entlassen in der schlechten Zeit. Gott sei Dank hat sich das so ein bisschen erholt und wir können jetzt wieder mehr Leute einstellen. Es ist natürlich jetzt wieder ein bisschen ruhiger, jetzt die nächsten paar Monate, aber dann hoffen wir natürlich auf die das lange Osterwochenende, wo wir dann wieder hoffentlich gut zu tun haben.
Ja, und das ist meine nächste Frage. Wenn ihr in die Zukunft blickt mit der ganzen Corona-Krise und so, was sagt dein Herz hier? Wird es wieder besser werden?
Das wird besser und Gott sei Dank haben wir auch unsere lokalen Leute, die uns jetzt über die ganze Zeit unterstützt haben. Dafür sind wir sehr dankbar, weil die Touristen, das dauert ja wieder, bis das mit dem Tourismus wieder vorangekurbelt wird. Ich denke, das wird jetzt in den nächsten Monaten auf jeden Fall in eine positive Richtung schauen. Wir bekommen immer mehr Anfragen jetzt vom Tourismussektor, also das wird schon wieder. Blicken positiv in die Zukunft.
Auch. Super, danke vielmals, Silvia Kleinstieber vom Café Anton.
Vielen Dank und dann schönen Tag noch.
Yeah, we hardly ever do that to you, but we have to understand that in Swakopmund many of the people are still German speaking, and clearly it's much sort of focused on the German tourism. So I hope you could at least follow. If you couldn't follow, I think by just listening to my intro, you've got the rough idea. We're basically talking of Hotel Schweizer Haus combined with Café Anton. And the cafe obviously offers a huge variety in terms of restaurant inside. You can obviously have these nice confectionaries, or go down and sit down for a quick lunch or whatever you do. You can simply go for a cup of coffee, sit out on the outside veranda and basically have a look out towards the sea. So that's Café Anton for you. You know, sometimes you don't have to understand it. Just look at the picture and you know that you will have a great time there if you quickly go and visit Café Anton in Swakopmund. Right, and then next up, normally we bring you two destinations as such, and this time we've done it a bit different. We've spoken to Joseph Kafunda. He's the chairman or chairperson of the Emerging Tourism Enterprise Association. And he's the coordinator of the Walk for Love Connect Africa. This is an event in Namibia that will take place on 12 February in Swakopmund. And Elani Smith of Namibian Sun spoke to him in an effort to provide more information with regard to the event that aims at supporting the tourism sector after the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also speaks about the challenges that tour guides face in Namibia, especially during and still after the pandemic. Here you can clearly see that's the poster and that's what it's all about. But Elani actually provided a video.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Kafunda. I'm the chairperson of Emerging Tourism Enterprise. At the same time, I've been selected as a coordinator for what is known as Walk for Love, a Pan-African project that is initiated by a brother in Nigeria and a sister in South Africa, so that we can raise awareness and support the tourism industry that has been so crippled by the pandemic. So Walk for Love, it's a one-day event which is going to be taking place on the 12th of February. We have two coordinators in Namibia. We have one of the coordinator here in Windhoek, and we have another coordinator in the coastal town of Walvis Bay. But the events will be taking place in Swakopmund. Venue is not yet determined, but we are busy trying to negotiate with Tiger Reef so that we can have the events hosted at Tiger Reef. So basically, Walk for Love, it's just for us as a tourism industry and people within the community to come and work together in the support of the industries, especially when it comes to tour guides. Tour guides were the mostly affected by this pandemic, and they didn't get any support, they didn't get any press, they didn't get anything. So we are thinking of how can we be able to empower them by Walk of Love. So we are inviting each and everyone who is willing to come in and sponsor, because there will be some medals, there will be some drinks, water, and certificate will be also printed, because this is the first initiative or first time we're initiating such an initiative. So we're looking to continuously doing this initiative until a certain time. So that is what Walk for Love is all about. It's an African initiative.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about the tour guides and how they were affected now during COVID-19?
Tour guides, me being one of them as well. What happened during the COVID pandemic is that most of us who were permanent or permanent employee, we got retrenched after the first 3 months with no support, no benefits whatsoever. And Namibia has an open field for tourism industry. And tourist guides, majority of them, let me say like 70 to 75%, are what we call freelance guides. Freelance guides, they come work for the season, or they work for a tour operator when the tourism is on a peak. And after that, they go do their daily or businesses, whatever they have to do. So most of those freelance, they have not worked for 2 years. They have tried to reach out to the government. We have tried to reach out to the Namibian Tourism Board so that we can have an initiative that can be able to support the tourist guides. And so far, nothing has bear fruits. And when we try to regulate or ask the government so that the tourist guide can be regulated, there's always a hiccup. There's always something that doesn't go as planned. So it's created a backlog of tour guides not being assisted or not being helped during the pandemic. So it's really, really have affected a lot of them. And we know some of them who have lost houses, lost vehicles, lost their entire integrity just due to the pandemic. So it was a very, very awful period.
And how will this help if the tour guides are being regulated? How will that help the sector?
It will give them, first of all, the sense of belonging, because at the moment they are wobbly. They don't know to which association or which labor, whatever they belong to. And they can be able to fight this even in court, because they are considered as employee. And being considered as an employee in this country, you have certain benefits that you can be able to get. A tourist guide cannot even be able to register himself at Social Security, because they will ask you, where's your proof of payments or proof of salary? And that creates, again, another discrimination in the tourism industry. Tour guides has been completely discriminated. Currently, what is happening is that tour guides are being forced to be vaccinated, otherwise you don't work. Even although we know we have faced the pandemic, how can you ask someone to be vaccinated by force? Vaccine is supposed to be mandatory, not by force. So tour guides, we need to stand, the government need to come on board and assist the tour guides right now, because otherwise it will be chaos. And they don't want to walk on the street, or we don't want to walk on the street where we're going to be marching just because we are being forced to do something that is against our integrities.
Tell me a little bit about training for tour guides in Namibia. Is there anything like that in Namibia?
Namibia do have a couple of trainings. Wilderness do run their own private training school. We have the Namibian NATH run also their own training academy. And then we have the Namibian Training Authority, which is the highest body which has to credit the tour guides. So those processes already been done. There's a curriculum, or there's a standard units that people use in the tourism industry. So the standard units that people use in the tourism industry, it's known and it has already been gazetted. They already have the qualification by NQA. So we don't know why is the delay in regulating the tourism guides in this country.
Right, that was Joseph Kafunda speaking to Ilani Smith. And, you know, I get around a bit in Namibia, and I've always found that no matter where you go, you always have quite easy access to tourist guides. And if you look at the following picture, you will see that you've got this organization, Tourist Guides Association of Namibia. I inserted the link on the page there. This is their sort of opening page where they introduce who they are and what they do and so on. But the bottom line that I'm going for is no matter into which larger town you go, they are always clearly marked information centers. And those that are smaller towns and settlements, they invariably, as you enter town, you will find some notice or some pointer that says, by the way, if you go to this or that site, you will be introduced to a couple of guides. I've even seen that in Puvo. As you drive in, on the right-hand side, you've got a little center where they can refer you to decent site guides. And the same happens if you go to Twyfelfontein or wherever you go. So invariably people think that tour guides are those guys who are driving your car and taking you around Namibia. Yes, that too. But there are many of these guys who simply know the places better than you. So if you go to a place like Upuvo, if you go to Twyfelfontein, if you go up to Kavango areas, especially also in Ovamboland, I would almost say you're a bit dumb if you don't ask around for a good tour guide, because you've traveled a long way to get to those places. You might as well find out from these guys which are the best places to go and visit, because they will point out, even in a place like Twyfelfontein that has a guided tour which you can walk alone. Take a guide along, because you think you've seen all the Bushman art and rock art. No, they know of different hidden places where you've got some special pictures which you've clearly missed or are going to miss. So I would generally encourage you, make use of a tour guide. They're much better informed, especially they know which places you can access and why you should access it, which adds to your safety as well. So just a hint on that one. So those are destinations for that matter. Destinations in terms of tour guides obviously being all over the country. But make a point of using these and make sure that wherever you go and approach a destination that you've got the best chance of properly exploring it. So these are the destinations today. Up next, we've got To The Point.
If you're feeling how I'm feeling and you know I won't stop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
Yeah, very interesting. On Wednesday, we saw the launch of the La Biennale di Venezia 2022 by its president Roberto Ciccuto and the curator Cecilia Alemani. The topic of the 59th International Art Exhibition is The Milk of Dreams, which is based on the book of Leonora Carrington, and those of you who would know it, it explores the capacity or possibility of humans to engage in a metamorphic change, in part or as a whole, where you metamorph from one human form into animal form and even mechanical structures. So this is quite wide thinking that will be taking place, and on the internet site of the Venetian Expo, you will see a lot about the fact that it's probably the biggest cultural event, possibly even of the world, and it's a very far-reaching event, and so Roberto Ciccuto challenged the world to engage in dialogue through art. So I've got a visitor, well, I had a visitor in which I interviewed, and to show you how Namibia, for the first time ever, will be involved in that event as well. Right, welcome back, and as you can see, I've been joined in the meantime by Dr. Marco Furio Ferrario. I've got it right.
Correct.
Welcome to the show, Marco.
Thank you, Frank.
And the reason why I've invited him, as I alluded to before, is that Dr. Ferrario has basically got very good news for Namibia. It's the first time ever, but I don't want to steal his thunder, so tell us why you're here.
Oh, I'm here to announce that for the first time in history, Namibia will be featured at the Biennale Art. Biennale Art is the most important contemporary art exhibition in the world, where nations from all over the world exhibit their best contemporary artists.
Yeah, and this is the exciting, you can see here we've got the 59th Biennale And essentially what this all boils down to, Namibia has never had the opportunity to be there. So tell us more, why are we there? What will we be doing?
Well, it was a bit out of serendipity. I felt in love with these countries many years ago. My first visit was in 2014, and I discovered these little sculptures around the Kaukland, and I felt in love from the beginning. And then during the COVID lockdown in Europe, I was sitting in my house, obviously.
Yeah, especially in Italy, it was very heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, and I started thinking what I could do to help Namibia recovering from the travel ban and everything.
Yeah.
And having a lot of friends here and having a love for art, I thought the best way was to introduce a new attraction to the many that you have in Namibia. And the new attraction was the contemporary art. And I thought the Limestone Man, the sculptures that were distributed along the desert, were just the perfect thing to exhibit at the Biennale.
Yeah, and this is really, those people who would know it and see this for the first time, if you drive along in Kokerveld and you approach certain points from very far, you see this sort of shadowy image. And then as you go closer and closer and closer, you suddenly see, but this is a man, but he seems a bit big. And, that's a sort of image. So they everywhere in the Kokerveld. And then, I mean, I've been there, I've seen them, and obviously so have you. So tell us a bit more, make us understand what makes this special. Why Namibia suddenly, how does it fit in with the art world and as we understand it now?
Well, they have many characteristics that makes them special.
Yeah.
One of them is that they're not signed. They're very particular, so you can tell when you see one that the artist behind them is the same.
Yeah.
But the willingness of the artist was to put the artworks first,
Yeah.
and just to leave there a message for the public, for everyone. And this is quite something in the contemporary art scene. It comes from the tradition of the street art,
Yeah,
but now we are in the desert.
Yeah.
So we have another element, which is coming from the tradition of the land art, and which is the interaction between the sculptures itself and the surroundings. And one very important thing is that in the artwork there is not only the little man that you see in the background,
Yeah, exactly.
but the desert itself is a part of the artwork.
Yeah.
Because of the very choice to put the sculptures there is changing the way you see the desert,
Yeah.
and the desert is contributing to the artwork.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful operation of what it may be a new movement in art.
Yeah, so it's basically not one thing overtaking the other.
Yeah.
It's a nice fit. It seems natural, and it's not out of place, and that makes you. Because if I understood you correctly the other day, it's all about getting men, and yesterday with the opening of the Biennale, we could hear it as well. It's all about the fact that we need to come back to basics and understand where we belong in the world.
Correct. I think this is my interpretation of the artworks. Of course, the artworks are out there for anyone to go and see them and build his own understanding. As a curator, I have to give a curatorships, so I will present my understanding of the artwork, and it is, these are men from different countries, from different cultures, that are looking for a gathering in the desert, in the Kaukland. They've chosen Namibia, and they've chosen the desert because it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, one of the most wild place in the world, one of the most untouched place in the world. And they want to meet there to maybe discuss the place of humankind as a whole in nature. and how we relate to nature and what we shall do with our relationship with nature.
It really ties up with what Roberto Cicucci said, having to find a place where humans don't see themselves as the center of the universe anymore, but rather go back to basics and understand that we're just one microchip in the much bigger computer.
Correct, exactly correct. I'm very happy that you bring up the words of the president, Roberto Cicuto, because it's exactly like that. And that's what art is supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
To bring people to think about this kind of thing throughout the beauty of something that is made to be watched and to be, discussed. And another piece of information that I want to deliver, which I think is very descriptive of these artworks, is Immanuel Kant's definition of art in the Critique of Judgment. Immanuel Kant said that the art is real art when it looks like nature. And here we have this example. It's magnificent and it's fitting perfectly.
Yeah. So before we part today, just one final thing. If we look at this sort of art form that leads to cultural tourism, that's obviously something that's new in Namibia. Where do you see it having a relatively immediate impact on Namibia? And how have you experienced it so far, and where do you see it going?
Well, I have already seen and I already met many people coming to Namibia just to find out about these sculptures. And one piece is that the sculptures are moved around the desert, and nobody knows the exact location. And this insert a treasure hunt element that we shall preserve, because it's a playful element, it's an interaction element with the public, which is very specific of contemporary art. And it's what will attract people. People are already coming into Namibia to do this kind of tour, but after the Biennale, which will start in April, millions of people will visit Biennale. We will get acquaintance with these artworks. They will see the beauty of Namibia, and they will come and visit, and they will want to see the attraction.
Yeah, and it is really exactly that, because we've got a couple of UNESCO heritage sites in Namibia as well. So at the end of the day, whoever out there is smart enough will quickly catch on to it and say, oh, we will start with that, but by the way, we've still got the Sand Sea down at Sossos, and we've got other places where we'll take you as well. So I'm actually looking forward to this in a big way. And just for our listeners to understand, we will be covering this in the coming months, obviously leading up to April when it's opened, right to the end of it at the end of September, and probably even after that. And I actually look forward to having you back as a guest in future. Dr. Ferrario will be going back home now, starting to seriously get hold of some financing. This is a huge project, and so the idea at the end of the day is that it lasts for a very long time, both at home for you, but then also obviously for us here, who will be able to further this sort of idea and maybe place it on the map worldwide.
Absolutely. And Biennale Art makes history, because every edition we print a catalog with all the exhibitions, and they are there for the history books. So definitely it's something that will have a long tail, and for the future it will have a great impact, hopefully.
Thank you for being here today, and see you sometime soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Once again, these sort of events, when they occur, it's really up to us to make them a success as well. It's up to us for the first time to be able to engage in what is called cultural tourism. And this is why it's also being done under the auspices of the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture rather than Ministry of Tourism. That doesn't exclude the others from taking part. Quite the contrary, over the coming months we'll be doing more and more of it. But this was a first startup just to get going and to engage. And so going forward, we will definitely still inform you on a regular basis on this show, and even as little clips and information snippets on the Tourism Namibia internet site and or the Facebook page. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are too, because this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to place Namibia on the map in a much bigger way. So that brings us to the end of this show. I hope you still have a good Sunday, a remaining Sunday afternoon. And then we'll see each other in 1 week's time, same place, same time. And until then, look after yourself. Bye.